welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be talking about soil compaction testing with a needle-based penetrometer. And today I am in a sunflower field and I am going to demonstrate how to use the penetrometer. This is used to measure soil compaction in units of PSI, also known as pounds per square inch. And on our penetrometer, we have two different tip sizes. And so this first one here that I'm showing is a 3/4 inch tip, and this is commonly used in sandy soils. There also is a 1/2 inch tip, and this is more common to use in more clay or softer soils. So for today, since we're working in a sandy soil, I am going to be using our 3/4 inch tip. And essentially, to use this, you have a scale on the top of your penetrometer, and because we're using our larger 3/4 inch tip, we are going to read the outer scale. But once you get over 300 and you get into that red zone, that is when your roots, and they're not able to penetrate properly and uptake water and nutrients as well as they would be able to at lower compaction levels. Just one thing to note before we do this is there's 3-inch increments marked off running up the pole. And if you happen to be working out by yourself, it's best to have some colored tape that you can wrap around each 3-inch increment so it's easy to identify how far you're penetrating into the soil. Although if you have another person with you, it's often helpful to have them with a notebook so that one person measuring can list the numbers as they're penetrating, and then the other person just has to record, and that's probably the most efficient way to do it. Oftentimes you want to do this compaction testing in the spring prior to planting your crops, because then you're able to assess how tight your soil condition is, and that will influence what type of crops you might be able to grow. So crops that perhaps have a longer or deeper rooting system might struggle more compared to a crop that has a shallow rooting system, but it will really just depend on the health status of your soil. So the more that you can do to understand your soil by doing preliminary soil testing and having records of previous crops in rotation will give you a better knowledge of what you have starting out with. And so what we simply do is use both of our hands on the handlebars, and we just find a nice flat area. If there is any vegetation or weeds, you can easily remove those, and that way you have flat ground without vegetative disturbance. And then you want to look at your scale as you are pushing the probe into the ground. So if I'm going to start here, I'm going to have both hands on the handlebars. I'm going to stand about shoulder width apart, and then you just want to be looking at your scale and then start pushing into the ground. So as you can see, the ground is very tight here, and I'm not quite getting down to 6 inches, and I'm already at 100 PSI. And then when you hit a tight spot, it's important to stop and then use one hand holding on the pole. Sometimes you can even use your second hand to lift it out. And you always just want to make sure that your tip is still on. It might loosen sometimes, and it's just important to tighten it. And then I like to remove any soil that builds up on the tip, so that way it makes a nice clean impact when you put it back into the soil. And so since we found that that little spot was a bit tight, you just want to find another spot and then continue to see how far you can get down. So then I'm going down again, I'm looking at the scale and just applying like an even gradual pressure as you penetrate into. And so I just reached 200 PSI there. And if you continue to apply pressure, again, it's very tight. And then again, pull it out from the ground. Make sure the tip is tight and remove any excess soil. So as we can see, this soil is fairly tight, but this is just along the edge of this plot. So you are able to walk in other places and check to see if the soil is perhaps less compacted in other areas. And it's just very important to be able to measure multiple different spots in your field. And I often suggest walking in a W or an M pattern, and that allows you to cover a good representative amount of the field. As you can see, although the soil is a little bit tight here, these plants have done fairly well and they look healthy and strong, and they are producing a beautiful crop of sunflowers here, and they're very tall and getting lots of good sunlight exposure with a great canopy cover. And I'm just going to move around to the other side and just see if I can do this. So I think this area might be good to try as well. So we'll just, again, put even pressure. And you can see here I got farther down. The soil was softer and I did not exceed 200 psi. I'm just going to gradually pull it out again. And so you'll just continue to follow this pattern, walk across your field, and then once you collect a minimum of 10 or 15, I often do 6 inches, about 9 inches, and then 12 inches, so then I can do averages at different depths. Often do the top 6 inches of your soil profile, and then anything beyond that 6 inches deeper into what we might consider more of like the subsurface soil layer. So then you're able to look at different depths of your soil to see what's compacted and perhaps what's less compacted. So it's good to be able to have some of this data to work from. Hello, we are standing in a cornfield. Find a few spots along the edge of this cornfield to measure soil compaction. So we'll find a spot and we'll start to penetrate into the ground. And we did, as we pushed in the ground here, found that it was a little bit tight at the beginning, and then as you're going further in, there was a spot where it softened up and the penetrometer easily went down further into the soil profile before we hit a tight spot and then stopped. And so for this particular example, I didn't look at the scale as closely because I was assessing the amount of tightness under. So I will just move around a little bit and try a few other spots to see if it's also having similar levels of tightness or perhaps more or less compacted soil. So again, just apply a gradual steady pressure and penetrate into the ground. And as you can see, it seems to be similar in being fairly shallow and not tight at the top, a little bit tighter as you get in, and then it softened up and went down until you hit a hard spot. And again, just use your hands on the pole to pull it out from the soil. Make sure that your tip is very snug and secure, and remove any excess soil that builds up on the bottom of the. And then I'll try one other spot over on this side. Just gradually start applying pressure as you move into the ground, looking at the scale. However, this spot is particularly tight, and so I was not able to get up to 200 before hitting a hard area. And then you'll just move it out. And it is very common to see tight areas, especially along the edges of fields, because those places often have additional compaction from tractors moving along those parts of the fields with additional passes. However, sometimes you can also find hard spots in the middle of fields, so it's just important to be able to collect multiple data points, and that way you're able to see if there's some parts that are more compacted in your field than others. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below in the comment section. And as always, if you have not already subscribed to my channel and you'd like to receive more notifications when I post new content, please subscribe now. And I hope to see